Welcome back, everybody, to True Talk Tuesdays, where a couple guys talk about how to make the world a better place and hopefully make your day a little bit better in the process. My name is Mark, followed by my co-host Stephen. Let's get this thing kicked off. Well, first off, we want to kind of take a minute and kind of talk about how things have been going here in the dojo. Over the weekend, Stephen, you actually got to participate in our Allstar Weekend, which is it's funny, my wife always makes fun of me for this. She's like, why do you call it a weekend? It's like all week. I'm like, don't mess with it works. Just leave me alone. So you got to participate in All-Star Weekend, which was a 4-day event. Kind of walk us through, how was it for you?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I really had a great time. On Wednesday, it was a Wednesday through Saturday event. And on Wednesday was a master's sparring session. And I was amazed at how we broke down a jab cross, and we spent 90 minutes on it, just really putting it into different situations, different scenarios, and I really enjoyed that. Thursday was a board breaking session. I've not broken a board before, so that was really great. Friday was a snake test, so I was able to earn my snake certificate and patch, along with countless others. And then the real kicker was the dragon test. That was legendary of its kind. I had not done one of those before, but the things that they put us through was incredible. I definitely felt like it was interesting. I'm trying to think of a way to sum it up, and I can't, because there's just so many different things that they challenge you, that I was challenged with. I should say. Yeah. The hardest one for me was hanging from a rope, right? So it's like the monkey bars, but it's more of a rope ladder, right?
Yeah, it actually is a rope ladder that we just hung up.
You just hung it up sideways?
Yeah. Well, no, it hung it up normal, but then anytime you grabbed it, it turned.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And what was funny is, side note of that thing, I saw a Mark Rober video of carnival game scams.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It's kind of like that one, because there was a central pivot point, so it would swing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I saw that. It still didn't help me that I knew that ahead of time. But that was really fun. That was a great time. I missed everyone here at the Sojo Dojo, but had a good time.
Yeah, so when with the All-Star Weekend, it's really nice because a lot of the students have the ability to work with different instructors, get exposure to different thought processes. Like, for instance, with Saturday, when you said you worked on a jab cross for an hour, it's because it was taught by Master Martin. And anybody that knows him, the dude knows sparring ridiculously well. Okay, so it's like he could spend 2 weeks on a jab cross and he'd be like, oh, I still don't know what I'm doing. So really, really good with that. Now, when you said you never got to you've never broke boards before, what was that initial feeling when you actually broke through it?
It was insane, because I didn't break it on my first try. So it felt like frustration, and then as soon as I broke through it, it was just epic. It was just like, oh yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
Very, very empowering, very fulfilling. I felt very fulfilled after having so many attempts that I didn't break through.
Yeah. And now when we say board breaking, we're not talking these 8-inch thick pieces of wood that you use for demos, where if you sneeze hard, it cracks. Like, they were breaking 1-inch pine, that it was a 12 by 12 square of 1-inch pine. I mean, it was a serious piece of wood. Mm-hmm. I mean, we went to Home Depot and bought it that morning and then cut it. So when we're talking about board breaking, we're not talking about that flimsy stuff that you see with most board breaking demonstrations. Mm-hmm. This was legit, actually lumber,
Yeah.
So just want to make sure everybody understands that. So they're like, how do you know break? I've seen that. I broke a board at a fair one time. I flicked it and it cracked in half. No, this is legit stuff. So, yeah, it's honestly, that has been something I have heard from multiple people that don't train, where we've had extras and we've taken them home and be like, all right, hey, I want you to I took a few home a few years ago. oh God, it's probably been like 5 or 6 years ago. I took about 3 boards home, and I had everybody in my family do it. Like you coach them and you get them ready. And the second they broke it, they felt like they were invincible. They're like, oh, well, this is great. Like, does everybody feel like this? And yeah, they do. And I know actually a lot of systems incorporate board breaking with their testing. So at the end of their test, they got to break a board, and like that's the kind of final thing to get their test or certificate or rank or whatever. So, and then the snake test. When we say snake test and dragon test and all that stuff, in our system we study the different movements of like 5 animals. And way back in the day, Master Lenton had the great idea of creating tests to enhance the student's experience on the different animals that we train here. So each animal has its own characteristics. So each test has its own certain challenges and characteristics. For example, the snake is all about speed, timing. It has the most internal energy out of all the 5 animals. You can work on pressure points. And when I think of snakes, you also think of like grappling, because they're constrictors. A lot of snakes are constrictors. So they worked on a lot of some grappling moves, some ground defense, to where if you get knocked on the ground, how to, kick people away and learn to stand back up real fast. And then, they went through a couple of locks and holds and chokes. So it was a lot of fun. I was telling Master Martin after the test, he was the one running it. I go, I've never heard so many like gurgles and gags in my entire life. He goes, it was weird because we do, they practice chokes on each other and this and that. But for some reason, everybody there felt the need to like let this like gagging sound come out. And I was like, what is wrong with everybody? But don't worry, nobody got seriously injured. And then the dragon test, that is a different beast because it's the only, quote unquote, mythical animal that we train. So it's really trying to take each characteristic of each animal and compiling it into one. And you get pushed in lots of different ways, physically, mentally, all sorts of different ways. One of the tasks that they had to complete was I guess you could call it like a modified cold plunge, where you didn't like fully submerge, but it was like bobbing for apples in frozen cold water. And you had to hold your breath with your head underwater for 10 to 15 seconds. And a lot of people struggled with that. And it was like, the cold's not going to go away. So if you take your head out, when you put it back in, it's still going to be just as cold. So a lot of people struggled with learning how to push past that initial discomfort. And then when they did, it wasn't quite so bad. They actually would like want to go back and do it again. It's like, you've already done this, go away. But I'm hot. I'm like, hey, go away, do something else. So yeah, All-Star Weekend, man, super fun. We love everybody that participates. It's a great experience. It enhances just everybody's knowledge with the art, and it gives everybody a different perspective, and it's just different type of training. Breaks things up a little bit. So, but yeah, last week in class we had a great week in class. It's we're just kind of getting back into the groove of coming off of Christmas break. It was good to see everybody training. And then. Yeah, things have been good. Yeah, I mean, it was a little disappointing over the weekend. My Eagles lost. It was awful. But on the happier note, the Cowboys lost as well. So that was always good. The Cowboys lost first, so I was like, yes, it's gonna happen. We're gonna go further in the Cowboys for like the 100th time in the century and this and that. And we still lost too because apparently we forgot how to. I say we. The Eagles organization forgot how to play football the last 2 months of the season.
You're disassociating yourself from them?
Yeah. I mean, as much as I cheer at the TV, I don't really feel like they can hear me.
You never know.
I feel like they can. Mentally and spiritually, it's like I'm giving it to them, and I think they're playing. Apparently, I didn't do a good enough job because they did not look good. But there's always next year. Hopefully, Jason Kelsey, if you ever listen to this, please come back for one more season. We love you. Don't retire yet, but I understand if you do retire. So, But getting on to the next portion of our program is our top 5 list. So this week, or last time, we did top 5 martial arts movies. And side note, the second we turned off the recording, like 18,000 more movies came flooding into my head. So we may end up having to do a top 5 martial arts movies 2.0. So side note, it's on Netflix. It's called Ronin Kenshin. It's a samurai movies. There's a series of 3. Oh, they're awesome. Really good. So that's probably going to be on my next top 5. But this week's top 5 is top 5 sandwiches. And you can get into discussion, like we've already talked about it, our hamburger sandwiches, our hot dog sandwiches, our tacos sandwiches. So we're going to go with, we're not going to get into that sort of debate today. But if you put hamburgers on your top 5 list, I'm not going to argue with it. But we're thinking more of your, like, Reuben sandwiches or clubs or, stuff like that. So what do you got for your top 5?
Whoa. Well, as you notice, I don't have a list on me, so...
He didn't prepare like last time.
I was just hoping to try out one sandwich, like 5 different sandwiches before this episode. I got about 1.
You got 1?
But my favorite sandwiches are Reubens. I do like cheesesteaks.
Cheesesteaks,
yep. Yeah. I really like turkey and cheese.
Just plain old turkey
plain
and cheese?
Old, like...
Well, I shouldn't say plain old, but...
Almost the most processed honey smoked turkey and American cheese.
Gotcha.
Like cheap.
Like in the wrapper still cheese?
Yeah. Okay. We'll take the wrapper off before you eat it.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You can't tell if the wrapper's on or not.
Sometimes you can't.
So that's 3. I do like... man, this is a thinker. I do like some hamburger. I'm going to call hamburgers on my sandwich list.
All right.
Hot sandwiches, Then I like... Let's see. We got Reuben. We got Philly.
Yeah.
We've got turkey cheese. We've got hamburger.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go with a meatball sub.
Okay, meatball sub. That's a good one, too.
Yep.
That also begs a question. I was also just thinking about it. Would you classify a gyro as a sandwich?
I would.
Yeah.
Gyros, tacos, hot dogs can be considered either sandwiches
or just their own entity.
Their own entity, yes.
I mean, that's kind of selfish. They have to have their own classification. That's kind of rude.
Yeah.
But good list.
Okay. Yeah, Gyros number 6. But
Gyros number 6.
Honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
I do like
yeah.
gyros.
Okay. So if you have a sandwich that's not on our top 5, obviously please feel free to leave it in the comments below.
Tell me which one I'm missing.
Okay, so mine in no particular order. Obviously, you got to go with the Philly cheesesteak. Obviously, with me loving the Eagles, you can't go wrong with the Philly cheesesteak. And not so coincidentally enough, sometimes it's a bad thing. We have a really good Philly cheesesteak sandwich place right next to the dojo.
Oh yeah,
it's D, or is it PD or DB?
I think
or
it's
DP.
DP
cheesesteaks. Man, they got killer cheesesteaks, especially for being in Utah. I like Reuben's as well. I like Cuban sandwiches. Cuban sandwiches are one of my favorites too. Anytime I go into a restaurant and I see that they have a Cuban sandwich, I'm always going to try it. That one's good. Grilled cheese. You can't go wrong with grilled cheese. And I'm going to finish off with meatball subs also.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was 5, right? Yeah, that was 5. So those are my top 5. Again, if we've missed one of your favorite sandwiches, well, obviously feel free to let us know, and I'd love to see what else is out there. I mean, because when it comes to sandwiches, I mean, yeah, you can do like your ham and Swiss, or
kind of just stick with your favorites.
Yeah, your roast beef and provolone.
There's a whole roast beef avenue I didn't even talk about.
Yeah, there's the French dip.
Mm-hmm.
What is, like, Chicago has that, like, what is it, a roast beef sandwich or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah. I've seen this this page on Instagram where this couple, they go through each state and each state has its own, like, quote unquote specialty sandwich.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So some of them I was like, dang, that looks really good. Another honorable mention for sandwiches is the Bobby from Capriati's. Have you ever had that?
I don't remember if I've had it.
It's basically like Thanksgiving in a sandwich.
Oh, okay.
It's turkey stuffing, cranberry sauce. And it's all in a sandwich.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's killer. It's killer. So that's our top 5 for this week. Next week we'll obviously have a new top 5 for everybody. So stay tuned for that. And now we're getting to the portion of the Ask the Sensei. This week's questions are kind of interesting because they're all about, I don't want to say one singular event, but there were a lot of questions about our training and our teaching and just like things we've experienced throughout our years of being involved with martial arts. So the first question we've got from our students this week is, where did I write it? There it is. Okay. What has been the funniest part of your training? Has there been something that has happened in your training or something that you've done where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't get over when this happened or that happened and all that stuff?
I'm struggling to think of one. I just think there's so many different things that add qualitatively to my training.
Mm-hmm.
Like I appreciate the candor and the discussions and the jokes of people just talking during class. I also I'm trying to see if I don't know if anything just so funny that it's just happened.
Yeah.
Right. Like one event where it's like, oh wow,
we're laughing at that person
now.
one thing, or maybe it was a bad event at the time, and then looking back on it, you're like, that was actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just being able to tell jokes is great, and actually one does come to mind. Telling some jokes during stretching, that's always fun. One comes to mind, and it's during the Dojo Olympics, one of our group classes.
Yeah.
I think it was back in the day. I don't know if it was at the old dojo or here. But I was on a team, and I was on Team Bob, right?
Yeah.
And
Team Bob.
We just crushed everybody in the physical realm, and then we just absolutely sucked when it came to trivia.
The trivia everybody bombed on.
Yeah. But I remember being called a Giga Chad once by another student.
The Giga Chad?
Yeah, and that was pretty funny.
What is that? Is that...
You'll have to look that up after our session.
Wow. Giga Chad.
Because I just blew everyone out of the water with push-ups and stuff. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, that's a very loaded question because it's hard to find like one particular thing to where it's like, oh my God, that was the funniest thing ever. And it's like, I try to stay away from like, quote unquote, my favorite. It's like, there's so many things. So it's like, somebody's like, what's your favorite movie? I can't tell you that.
Here's the thing is like, once you have your favorite, why bother doing anything else?
Exactly. So I would probably say some of my funniest parts or some of the best parts of training, honestly, are sometimes some of our closed door meetings with Master Martin and Master Lenton. Those two are the fastest, quick-witted thinkers, like, on the planet. Like, one will throw one insult at the other, then the other one, boom, right back, and then right back, and then right back, and they're just like, it's this ping-pong ball of, like, insults, and you're just like, I can't keep up because everybody's laughing. So, yeah, it's things like that. It's the road trips that you take with, your, fellow instructors and your friends. Like, I remember taking a road trip up to Seattle for a tournament up in Seattle, and it was me, Jay, Philip, and Jared. And me and Philip were, fairly decent-sized guys. Jay's a decent-sized guy, and then Jared was like a small human. He was, I'd call him normal. He was a normal-sized person. And we all crammed into Jay's Nissan Versa.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, Nissan Versa with four big people, and we drove to Seattle. So, like that created some fun memories. The trip to and from there, then almost thinking like we're gonna get kidnapped and by hillbillies in a town called Durkee, Oregon.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a creepy place. I'd never want to go back there again. You know, the trips, driving to Vegas with like Master Lanton and Max. Those have always been fun. You know, the cabin trips. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there was one cabin trip where Master Murakami was down here, Trent Zappin, and I don't know if anybody else. I think Jose Rodriguez was with us. Well, Master Martin's got a ping pong table down in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Master Murakami is obviously Asian. He's very good at ping pong. I think it's just in their blood.
Really?
So they're like, they went down and had a ping pong tournament. I have never seen such an intense ping pong match in a basement in my entire life. They're both sweating, breathing heavy. Master Murakami sliding on the floor. Like it was intense. It was intense. And all of a sudden you're like, who even won? And like nobody can remember who won. Obviously, if you talk to Master Martin, he won.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to Master Murakami, he won.
Obviously.
But yeah, it's just those like, you know, fun things that you do together, not necessarily the training in the dojo, but those relationships that you create from the dojo. I think those are some of the funniest moments you can kind of create. So there's that. The next question.
Question number 2.
Question number 2 is, what's been the best part about teaching for you?
For me, the best part of teaching is watching other people get what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And having those conversations with certain students about, well, let's make this yours. Let's make you better in the process of learning this.
Okay.
That's, for me, I enjoy having those discussions, those almost like you're consulting them and helping certain students. Granted, this works better when they're adults and whatnot, but it's like you get to have that conversation to be like, hey, I'm giving you this thing that's really beneficial for you, and I'm watching you take it as your own. Like you're using it, you're incorporating it, and I think that's just great. That's the best part of teaching for me.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's your answer is going to probably depend on like what age group you're teaching. It's like if you're teaching like the adults, like, you know, seeing them kind of all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh God, I understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, they start making it their own. You know, with the teens, or not the teens, the juniors class, it's like, you know, seeing kids come into their own, seeing them gain some confidence, see them get good at something, and then all of a sudden they're walking different. They're carrying their, you know, walking with their head high. They're not ashamed of anything. With the little kids, it's like, my gosh, dude, if you're not happy after you teach a little kids class, like there's something wrong with you. Are they a bunch of little turds sometimes? Oh yeah, of course. They're children. You know, do they not listen all the time? Yeah, of course, they're children. But they are like the most excitable, happy people on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And it's like if you have a room full of like 25 little kids doing karate, I mean, what's not to like about that?
Yeah.
So I would probably say the best part about teaching for me is just to kind of see the growth in everybody. I mean, I've really been fixated on the word growth. I mean, hence it's the, you know, theme for the year. Theme for the year is growth. So I've been really fixated on just the term growth. And again, when you break it down in each like class, when you see the kid that had a hard time standing still, now all of a sudden he's in front position without you even asking. You're like, holy cow! Like, yes, that's exactly what we want. Or, you know, the kids that are, you know, shy when they start and they don't even want to come in the dojo. Now all of a sudden it's like they don't even want mom to bring them in the dojo anymore. They're like, I don't need help.
Embarrassing me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and with the juniors, kind of the same thing. It's like, you know, the shy, awkward age where they don't really know who they are. They feel like they don't have any friends. And the next thing you know, they're like talking hanging out with kids like before class, like getting friends after class. I think it's funny watching the juniors boys. Oh my goodness. It makes me laugh. And I have to remind myself, okay, I was that stupid when I was that age too. They just act and do certain things. And you're just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I think I probably did that when I was their age too.
Mm-hmm.
But I like calling them out on it.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, hey, do you guys realize what you just did? I go, you guys are idiots. Knock it off. And that's probably, honestly, that is probably the God's honest truth about the best thing about teaching is I can make fun of the kids and, you can push them around and like, wrestle and tease with them and you don't get turned into like the principal.
Right.
Okay. So like, I honestly feel really bad for school teachers because they can't do anything.
Nothing like that.
It's like if a kid talks back to them, what are they going to do? Raise their voice at them again? Then the kid yells at them again, and then they yell at the kid. It's like nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like with us, it's like kid talks back, hey, 10 push-ups.
Yep.
Shut up. You can tell them to shut up, and because it's your facility.
Yep.
And they're like, ooh, what? I'm like, yeah,
What?
Shut your mouth. You need to be quiet. That's not how we operate here. So that I would say is the best part about teaching. I mean, all the other stuff is great too, but being able to, I don't want to say operate with impunity because obviously, there's certain lines you just don't cross, but like school teachers can't tell their kids to shut up. Now, granted, do we always tell the kids to shut up? No. But if they're being like little turds, yeah, I'll tell them, be like, hey, shut up. Like we had a couple of teens in the adult class earlier this week that kept talking when I was talking. So I told them all to shut up.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, like, yes, I will tell you to shut up. Be quiet. It's like, it's rude.
Mm-hmm.
So, and being able to have that, the ability, I don't want to say to treat them like the real world, but to treat them like the real world.
Right.
Okay. And that's where teachers, unfortunately, do not have that ability. It's like if they tell a kid to shut up, that student's going to tell their mom, and their mom's going to complain to the teacher because they don't talk to my kid like that. Even though I guarantee when they go home, the mom tells the kid to shut up all the time. So, but yeah, that's a very loaded question as well, because there's so many great things about teaching that it's hard to list them down into like your quote unquote top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but moving on, last question.
Question number 3.
Question number 3. This is a very interesting question because it kind of creates a little bit of thought, and I think it depends on where you're at personally in your own training. So we're going to take this as of right now. Okay. So think of like right now, and that's where we're going to answer it. Okay. It's what was your favorite rank?
So it's worded it has to be a rank that I already have.
Yes.
Yep. And for me, that's black belt.
Okay.
That is by far the de facto best rank as of right now.
For now, is that your favorite rank?
Yes.
Okay.
I've experienced all the ranks of this one and below it, and this one is my favorite.
Okay. So, very interesting because I'm total opposite.
You're total opposite.
I'm white.
You're white belt.
Yes. Now, granted, when you are a white belt, you can't wait to get rid of that thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on it, like white belt was the funnest rank. And for me, my explanation behind that is every time you come into class, it is brand
New
spanking new. Brand new. Now, in the moment, you're like, I just want the next belt. I'm tired of being the white belt.
I don't have to line up in the back.
Yeah, I do. I want the black gi. Yes,
That'd be cool.
In the moment, being a white belt, like nobody likes to be a white belt. Okay, but looking back on it, white belt truly is probably the funnest rank, and that's why a lot of like long-term martial arts students tend to seek other styles to get that feeling back.
Just continually getting new stuff.
Yeah. Of like feeling like they don't know something. So it was very interesting I would dare say, about 7 years ago, Tony Davis, Sensei Tony, and I would always go down to California, and we'd always train with a San Clemente school with a guy named Richard Cespedes. Richard, I believe he did get his 5th degree, but he's a 5th degree black belt in Kempo, and he's also a certified black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, so the dude is dangerous on his feet and on off his feet.
Wow.
Okay. He teaches a strictly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class in his dojo, along with his Kempo stuff. So we would always drive down there the day before we would fly down on a Thursday, and then we would meet up with him Thursday night for his Jiu-Jitsu class. And I remember going in there the first time, and we had our Kempo gear, like our Kempo gi on and our black belts and this and that, and we started grappling. Halfway through it, like, I looked at Tony, and Tony looked at me, and we stood up, we took our black belts off and threw them in the corner, and then kept grappling. It's like, dude, I don't feel right wearing this thing. And it's like, we were like fish out of, we were like newborn kids again. Wow. And it's like, and this was after, 10 plus years of training in Kempo. And it's like, oh my God, like, I have no idea what's going on. This is crazy. And then we proceeded to go back like every other month for about a year and a half. And it's you're developing that newness, that beginner's mentality. Okay, it's like I never understood that phrase. I would always hear it growing up, coming up through the ranks and this and that, and everybody would be like, "Hey, never lose that beginner's mentality." And I'd always be like, "Sure, because you're already a black belt, whatever." And they'd always say crap like, "Oh man, you really don't know anything when you get to black belt." And I was like, yeah, sure, because you're a black belt. Like, shut up. Don't.
Right.
Like, you're already a black belt. Like, I'm trying to get there. But truthfully, they were all right. The second I got to black, I was like, I really don't feel like I know anything. Like, should I be wearing this? And you almost have this, like, imposter syndrome. Or at least I felt it. I felt like I was, like, this imposter wearing this black belt. Even though I did earn it, and I was good, and I deserved it. Because I worked really, really hard for it. But you almost feel like, God, I still don't know as much as so-and-so. You're always kind of, or for me, I'm always looking at the people ahead of me. And I'm like, and it doesn't matter. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're looking really good. I'm like, look at that guy.
Look at them.
Look at that guy. Like, I don't look that good. Like, I need to look like that. Okay. And I've got great people ahead of me in Master Martin and Master Lenton. To where it's like, do you see them do that? That's what it's supposed to look like. Mine does not look like that yet. So you always definitely want to try to keep, for me, that beginner's mentality. So looking back on it, I would probably have to say, and I know people are going to be like, "Ooh, this is full of shit, blah, 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 blah." No, I would dare say white belt was my favorite rank.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you're well, and that also brings up the question, nothing's expected of you either. When you're a white belt, it's like if you can walk and like look forward,
you don't stumble when you're half
you're
moving.
Doing great. But yet when you're a black belt, there's a lot of pressure for you to know and understand your stuff. To where it's like, well, the black belt didn't do it right. What's going on? But yet if a white belt does it wrong, they'll be like, it's okay, he's a white belt. So
a black belt is just a white belt that persists.
Yeah, that never quit. It's very, very true. So I would probably have to say white belt was my favorite rank. So because you don't have to know a whole lot. It's every class is brand new.
Whoa, it's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
What gift am I getting today?
Exactly. And more than anything, you had a lot of people to look up to. It's when you get to black. Now, full disclaimer: getting your black belt is an amazing experience. Okay, so by saying black is your favorite, I agree. Being a black belt is awesome. Okay, not too many people can say that. Okay, but as you become a black belt and you earn like higher degrees of black belt, the groups become smaller. So it's harder to maintain that enthusiasm and that excitement because the group's not as big. So you have to put more effort into yourself, you can't draw from the people around you. Like when you're a white belt, man, it's like an entire mountain in front of you. It's like there's so much energy you can pull from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, when you get to black belt, and all of a sudden you're in a group for like 100 people, now there's like 10. Then you get to second, now there's 8. Then you get to third, now there's 4. You know, it just gets smaller and smaller. So you have to rely more on yourself to push you through those lulls in your training, those plateaus that everybody experiences. But yet, when you're a white belt, you don't understand what that is. Okay, you might experience your first plateau after 6 months or a year, something like that. Okay, and black, it's a little bit different. You may be working on the same thing for years,
seasons.
Yeah, not one thing for a month. It's like you're going to be working on this for a year. So it's a different type of mentality. So I think for me, since I've, I got my black belt back in the summer of 2008. It's like I've had it for a while. So it's like I like to think I want to go back to that when you first learn stuff. So that for me, that's where my answer comes from. But black is very cool. So if anybody tells you getting your black belt's not very fun, they're idiots. Well, let me rephrase. Testing for your black belt is not very fun. Getting your black belt, it's a conversation starter that you become a focal point of family conversations. Like I guarantee your dad has told people he's worked with, my son's a black belt. Right? Mm-hmm. I know for a fact my dad has. Mm-hmm. I mean, because he'd always keep asking me for business cards and he'd hand them out to people. My dad used to work at the airport. He'd hand them out to people at the airport. My son trains martial arts. He's a black belt. Here, take a car, go train with them. I'd be like, thanks, Dad. So
I'm here to ski, sir.
Yeah, I feel like I live in Arkansas. I just want to go snowboarding. We should go to his dojo. He'll give you a lesson today. I was like, thanks, Dad. That's very nice of you. So, but yeah, it's getting your black belt is a very, very powerful and confusing and an emotional experience. I know for my first degree, I was confused. Okay, because I think I told the story that I wasn't even supposed to test for black, and when you get it, you're like, yay! But you're like almost like in shock, like it's not real, because I didn't get a belt. They didn't have a belt for me, so it didn't feel real, and it felt confusing. My second degree, that one was a little bit more emotional, to where it pushed me a little bit more mentally. Obviously, they're all physical as well, but it pushed me a little bit more mentally than I was prepared for. And then third degree, I mean, we're all out in California, and it was fun. It was fun. It was a nice one. I didn't really feel anything with my third degree. I kind of felt like it was just like another day. Mm. And then at the time with the old regime with the United Studios, when you got to third or higher, it was a 2-part test, kind of like how we do ours.
Right.
So you would have to go back and recertify for your rank. And I remember vividly when we majority of us from Utah, majority of the instructors went back in December to recertify. And they brought us out for sparring, and we just killed everybody from, all the other states. It's like we beat the hell out of them. Like, wow. It wasn't even close. So I remember Brandon Sorby, he had to spar a guy named Vince Ness from, I don't even remember where he's from, but he was testing for his masters, and he just wiped the floor with them. And Aaron Faber, I think he was sparring Gary Flickinger, and he took it to Gary Flickinger. And Yeah, I was sparring Ben Pegas Jr., who got his 5th degree, and I felt like I was taking it to him too. So it was like, man, everybody from Utah just laid into everybody from all the other states, and it's like that felt pretty good because nobody looked at Utah as we were like the black sheep of United Studios. Nobody cared about us,
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, we'll make you care about us. So, and then on that same research test, I saw the greatest sparring match ever between Master Murakami and Master Barajas.
Really?
Yeah, Master Barajas. He doesn't really train in Kempo anymore. He still trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he changed careers and he moved from Vegas to Colorado and became a firefighter.
Oh wow!
Dude, the dude is tough. Like, he is tough as nails, and he's great on the ground. He's great on his feet, and he can just, like, you could beat him 7 ways to Sunday and he wouldn't care. Like, zero expression. And he was sparring Master Murakami, and obviously Master Murakami is an animal in and of himself. And it was like they were on their feet, their leg checking, their leg kicking, they're striking. All of a sudden someone grabs them, boom, on the ground. Now they're grappling. They're grappling. You know, people are throwing submissions, getting out of submissions, this and that. And then all of a sudden they get separated and they're on their feet and they're sparring again. Then they lock up and all of a sudden they're on the ground again. And then they're on their feet again. Then they're on the ground again. I'm like, holy crap. And everybody's watching.
Yeah.
And finally someone had to be like, dude, you got to stop them. Because they were sparring for like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Okay. And most sparring matches last 45 seconds to a minute and a half. Everybody was so into their sparring match that they forgot to call up.
Wow.
It was insane. Yeah. So
cool.
But I don't know if I've ever really asked you how you, like, what your experiences were on your black belt test.
Oh, my experiences on my black belt test, I got it about a year and a half ago, and it was great. I prepared for a much more intense test, and I think that preparation made me believe that the test wasn't as intense. So you
were ready.
I was drilling everything. I was walking. I was trying to do a mile, carrying 20 pounds in my arms, and then stopping every tenth of a mile and do 10 push-ups.
Yeah, you physically.
You
were ready.
I was there,
more than ready.
And mentally, I knew my stuff. I was drilling my forms multiple times. So when the test concluded after 4 hours instead of 6, I was like, well, this is it. And then I saw the black belt, and then I saw how everyone kneeled when those of us that weren't black belts were putting on their black belts. And that was a very emotional time for me.
Yeah.
It felt like, because that was my goal. I clearly kind of told you when I was coming up through the belts, like, this is what I want, this is where I'm going. And I felt like I'm there.
Yeah.
But then once that door opened, it wasn't the end. It was like, well, now what?
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do?
That is a very good thing, because a lot of people feel like black belt is like the finish line.
Right.
And in reality, it's nowhere near the finish
close.
line. But yet that's kind of like what we're trained to think. It's like, oh, you got your black belt, now you can do something else. It's like, no, now you can really start training. Now the like training actually, I don't want to say matters, but like begins. You know, all the other stuff was to make sure you could handle the training for black belt.
Yep.
No, that's very true. Now, also with us here, we do a 2-parter test also.
That's right.
So, how did you feel on your research?
I felt the research was funny. It was the test that was sort of the christening test of the Sojo Dojo.
Yeah, that was the first anything we really ever did here.
Yeah, because it was a week or two after we opened this school. And that was interesting. I was doing everything, and obviously there was some razzing, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to get into my heads, but I knew everything. Like, I did everything okay. But I also realized that it's like I got to take into consideration who I'm working with as well.
Yeah.
So there were some instances where I was working with another student that it's like, I don't know if the other student knew everything that I knew, or if I was doing things safely for them.
Yeah.
When we were executing DMs. So I learned, I recognized that, and I got over that. But we were running through our black belt forms, and for a research, you taught me Circle of the Tiger, and that was the only black belt form I knew.
Yeah.
So I was lined up with the other black belts, and he was listing off these forms, and, you know, the old saying, if you don't know it, do something you do know.
Yeah.
And so I was just hitting Circle of the Tiger over and over.
Yeah.
And Master Martin said, Stephen, don't you know any of the other forms? And I'm like, no, I'm just here for my research, sir.
Yeah. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, my bad. All right, that's probably, yeah, you're good then.
So that was an interesting moment there.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, okay, I'll do Circle again. Here we go.
Again.
Here we
Yep,
go.
Here we go. Yeah, because you don't want to stand there and be like, I don't have that form.
Oh, I'm just sitting here for opposition.
Yeah.
Oh, you compete for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting test. I was more, and I think this is my reasoning for liking black belt so much, is that I felt more aware.
Mm-hmm.
I felt more like, okay, I have an inventory of what I know. I have all this stuff. A lot of the tests coming up through the ranks for me was just like, I would practice, I would cram, I'd do it, I'd forget it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until brown belt that it's like, oh, I can start to remember all these forms again.
And that's kind of right around when that starts to click.
Yeah, when it starts to click, is
Yeah.
you've gone through enough reps that you can start remembering forms that aren't necessarily required for your next test. But once you're in an advanced test, you need to know all of them.
Yeah.
Up to that point.
Exactly.
So that was a good, like, going forward. I feel like with how often I practice and train, I hope, you know, obviously the black belt stuff that I'm adding on to is all that new stuff, and that's sort of that learner's mentality right there. It's like there's so much new stuff, and it's not like a part of a pin-on system or a kata system.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, we're calling it this.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, even when you get to black and you still feel like you learn stuff or know stuff. I mean, it was like yesterday in group class when we were doing, you know, wrist locks and joint locks and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing movements right out of forms you learned in orange belt.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're like,
then it
holy
clicks.
crap, like that is the movement out of this form. And you're like, okay, now I understand why we've been doing these for so long. And it doesn't start to make sense until brown black, unfortunately. And, you know, we do our best to keep everybody, but a lot of people struggle getting to brown and black belt because it's long, it takes a long time. And sometimes it's, you know, one of those things to where they want it faster and they want that instant gratification and they don't get it. And that's a struggle in and of itself. So, yeah, we ended up having a black belt test a couple of weeks ago. We had Elsa recertify for her black belt. She got her certificate, so she's a full-fledged black belt now. Yeah. We had Luke. Luke tested for his black belt.
Okay.
He did really well. Kid's an animal, you know. Great work ethic, good mentality, good person. We worked really hard to get him on this test because we're pretty sure he's going to be leaving for his mission during the summer. Mm. So we wanted to make sure that he was able to get both tests in before he would leave for his mission. So he got his black belt, and coincidentally enough, haven't seen him the last two classes. Yeah. So I need to call and be like, oh, so you get your black belt now, you can just ghost us.
Think you're better than us now?
Yeah, exactly. Brenner got his third brown, so next step for him is black.
Nice.
So that was good. It was a good test. It was strictly browns and blacks. So it was a very small test, but it was a very intense test. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was good. It was really, really good. Yeah, testing's always a different thing. In fact, Michelin and I were talking about testing during the dragon test, and we're always looking to find new and better ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, no. So that's it's kind of the show for today. I mean, we really kind of went off on a unexpected tangent on black and I think, black belts and stuff like that.
Talking about the ranks and how each rank has its significance, right?
Yeah.
Is a great message for today.
Absolutely. So if you're going to take anything away from today, never lose that beginner's mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is. Oh, I cannot emphasize that enough. If you can maintain that mentality of every time you come into class, it's like, man, give me something. Like, let me soak up some information. That is invaluable. That is not only invaluable for like martial arts training, but if you're an employee and you go to your boss and every time they talk to you, you're just soaking up information, you're valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get paid more money, you have to provide more value. So you have to soak up everything that you can, and the best way to do that is to come in like you don't know it. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll leave you with one story. Okay, this is a great story about a Zen master out of Japan. Okay, everybody would want to see this guy to talk, and talk philosophy, talk meditation, talk Zen. Show me the way. That type of person. Well, there's this young man that scheduled an appointment to go see him to have him show him the way. So it's his time. They show up, they meet each other, they greet each other, and they go into another room to have tea. So the master starts to pour the tea for this young man, and he keeps talking and talking and talking about all the stuff he knows and about everything he's done and everything he's going to do, and the guy just won't shut up. As he's talking, the Zen master just slowly pours his tea. He keeps talking. He keeps pouring. He keeps talking. He keeps pouring. Next thing he knows, the Zen master has poured so much tea into the cup, now the cup is overflowing with tea. Starts spilling on his hand. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? You're spilling the tea. You're overflowing the cup." He goes, "Exactly." And he goes, "I don't understand." He goes, "This cup represents your mind. It's already full. So it doesn't matter what I tell you today. Nothing's going to stay because it's just overflowing with stuff you already think you know. So if you want to really learn, you have to come in with an empty cup. Fill it up, take it in, come back with an empty cup." So that would be the message I would leave for everybody this week is approach each day with an empty cup. Okay? Attack it like it's the last day. But try to learn as much as you can every single day. Because that's what makes life fun. Okay? If you're not learning, you're dying. Okay? So let's keep living. Okay? So that's the show today. If you haven't started following us on Instagram, not Instagram, I'm sorry.
We got Instagram now?
We probably should get an Instagram,
Maybe.
But not yet. On YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music, we're kind of idiots when it comes to the Apple thing, so we'll get that figured out soon. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can get notifications when we drop new episodes. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so make sure you check those out. And if you have a comment or question, feel free to leave that in the comments down below. It was a pleasure speaking with you guys. Hopefully everybody's enjoying them, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Kick it with us next time. Bye, everyone.